Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into how a young, totally unknown officer didn't just grab an opportunity, he basically grabbed destiny by the collar, and, in the process, changed the world forever.
I mean, just think about that. How does a 24-year-old artillery officer become an absolute legend in less than 5 years? It's one of the most insane meteoric rises to power in all of history. So let's break down exactly how he pulled it off.
All right, so to really get this, we can't actually start with Napoleon. We have to start with France itself, because back in 1793, the country was, well, it was an absolute mess. It was on the verge of completely falling apart. You see, the French Revolution had been raging for a few years, and honestly, it was eating itself alive. This wasn't just a little bit of instability we're talking about. This was pure, unfiltered chaos.
In Paris, you've got these political extremists who have completely taken over. They've already executed their own king, and now they've kicked off something that history calls the Reign of Terror. And it was exactly what it sounds like, a period of just brutal, swift justice by guillotine for anyone who was even suspected of being an enemy. And as if things weren't bad enough at home, France was also fighting, well, pretty much everyone. All the big European powers were lined up, ready to crush this new republic. Oh, and on top of that, huge parts of France itself were in open, violent rebellion against the government. So yeah, war on all fronts. Okay, so this whole disaster comes to a head at a place called Toulon. Now, Toulon was a huge deal. It was France's main naval base in the Mediterranean. And the city rebels, and get this, they invite the British Royal Navy to just sail right into their harbor. This was a catastrophic blow. France was on the verge of being totally crippled. The French army trying to take the city back? It's a joke. It's being led by a painter, a guy with zero military experience. So into this complete mess steps a 24-year-old artillery officer nobody's ever heard of, a guy from Corsica named Napoleon Bonaparte. And he has a plan. And here's the thing, his plan was just so brilliantly simple. All the other commanders are talking about this big frontal assault on the city, which would have been a total bloodbath. But Napoleon looks at the situation and sees the real target. He basically says, forget the city for a minute, let's take that high ground, those forts overlooking the harbor. We fill them with cannons, and we can just blast the British fleet right out of the water. And this is so important to understanding who he was. Napoleon didn't just draw up the plans from a safe distance. No way. He led the charge himself, right from the front. He's in the middle of the fighting, his horse gets shot out from under him, he gets stabbed with a bayonet. I mean, this kind of personal bravery, it was absolutely electrifying for his soldiers. It became his signature move. And guess what? The plan worked. It worked perfectly. The British had to flee, and Toulon fell back into French hands. And for this, our 24-year-old captain gets a massive promotion, all the way up to brigadier general. This was it. This was the first big step on the ladder to greatness. Okay, so let's fast forward 2 years. After a bit of political drama, Napoleon gets his next big test. He's given command of what they called the Army of Italy. And let me tell you, this was considered a totally impossible, dead-end job. Calling it an army was being generous. It was a complete wreck. The men were starving, they hadn't been paid in ages, and some of them didn't even have shoes, let alone muskets. The government in Paris had basically forgotten they even existed. The situation was a catastrophe. But then Napoleon shows up, and with that crazy, relentless energy he was famous for, he just completely turns it all around. He smashes corruption, he rebuilds the supply lines, he enforces discipline, but most importantly, he gives these guys a promise. He promises them victory, glory, and all the riches that come with it. He turns this demoralized rabble into a lean, mean fighting machine. So the big question is, how is he going to deliver on that promise? I mean, he is seriously outnumbered. He's facing two different armies, the Austrians and the Piedmontese. If he fights them head-on in a normal way, it's absolute suicide. He knew he had to do something different. He had to basically rewrite the playbook. And this right here, this is the secret sauce. This is the core of Napoleon's genius as a commander. It's called the strategy of the central position. And the idea is actually super simple, but it is brutally effective. If you're facing two bigger armies, you don't try to fight them both at the same time. The trick is to get right in the middle of them. And that's exactly what he does. He moves his army with lightning speed and drives it like a wedge right between the Austrians and the Piedmontese. It forces them apart.
And here's the key takeaway. By doing this, he makes sure that he never has to fight their entire army. He only ever has to fight one piece of it at a time. And the result of this strategy? Well, it was absolutely breathtaking. It kicked off one of the most incredible military campaigns in history, seriously. So in less than a year, this army that was once a total wreck just goes on this absolute whirlwind of victory. He knocks one army, the Piedmontese, out of the war in just a couple of weeks. Then, at the Battle of Lodi, his men see him personally aiming cannons in the thick of the fight, and they give him the nickname the Little Corporal. The charge at Arkel, that becomes the stuff of legend. And then at Rivoli, he just smashes the last Austrian army they send at him. Now think about this, because this is what's so wild. He didn't just beat one army. The Austrians kept throwing new armies at him, trying to stop this guy, and he destroyed every single one of them. 4 separate armies. Nobody had ever seen anything like it. All of Europe was just stunned. And this quote, this tells you everything you need to know about his mindset. He's just conquered northern Italy. He's forced an entire empire to make peace with him. Most people would take a break, right? Not Napoleon. His ambition is already so huge, he's calling Europe a molehill. He's already thinking about the East, comparing himself to Alexander the Great. His ambition was just limitless. So let's just recap. In just a handful of years, he goes from a complete nobody to the most famous and feared general in all of Europe. His victories on the battlefield have given him incredible political power back home. And now, everyone, friends and foes, is left wondering the exact same thing. What is this force of nature going to do next?